you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Great dialogue we're going to have. I have two guests. We're going to have retired Major Luis Soto and former health administrator, right? Connie Alleyne, also a civilian trainer. She'll go into that, and a podcast host, a podcast that I have not been on. Okay, so either way, we're going to talk about a very, whoa, you guys can't see it. I saw blonde streaks. Connie has blonde streaks in her hair. I don't know, you guys can't see it, but I saw it. There it is. You know what, Connie, when it's your turn to speak, did you always have that and me being a man just never noticed it? Oh, okay. All right, wow. Never mind. Okay, she gave me a thumbs up. That means I never noticed it. Okay, well, I like the blonde streaks. They look good. Okay, so we're going to talk about what you may miss the most when you step up to be in management. I'm not talking about the superficial things like maybe weekends off, because I'm sure we may miss that. I'm talking about maybe interactions with that front line that are just going to be a little bit different now because you moved up, and no matter what it is that people are going to see you as manager first, and they're not really going to be able to see you as that old Officer Gangi who worked with us for the, on the front line for many years. And I think this is a very good heartfelt dialogue because I don't think a lot of us realize that there are days when sometimes management misses certain things about that front line. And, it's personal, because it is. I was thinking about it today when I was talking to somebody at lunch, and I didn't realize a lot of the things that I missed until the person asked me. And it wasn't, it was just stuff that was just personal and deep. And it was more of interactions with people, not so much the job, but the interaction with people and certain stories that I know we couldn't have today, as management, unfortunately. But hey, Soto, you mind introducing yourself again to our audience?
Yeah, how we doing? This is a retired major after 25 years in the New Jersey Department of Corrections. I'm also now a professor at Rutgers University, teaching under the criminal justice program. Always enjoying to be on Tier Talk and on this channel, speaking on various topics.
We love having you, and I make up these topics as we go, so thanks for enjoying them. Hey, Connie, you mind introducing yourself to our audience? And be gentle, please.
Sure. Connie Alleyne here, founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I'm also a criminal justice professor at Monroe College, and I'm coming to you guys with 15 years of correctional experience, 10 on Rikers Island and the other 5 in Connecticut Department of Corrections. So another wild ride Anthony has us on, and we'll just see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dialogue. It's something we never really discussed before. And again, it's not about the reviews or whatever, the views. It's really about dialogue that sometimes we can have fun with, that I actually thought was a very deep discussion today that I wanted to explore with you guys. So I'm curious to see where it goes as well, because I don't know what you guys are going to send my way, and obviously vice versa. So now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what you miss when you enter management position. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Guys, inmate manipulation is a course that is highly needed. It's the process that's so slow moving and subtle that you don't realize it's happening. When inmates choose to manipulate, they manipulate our need to react. Situational awareness and insight is going to save your career. It's going to save you from doing foolish things. Listen to your gut. So the more insight we have, the more we can recognize what isn't so overt, and we can correct our behavior before we fall into a trap that we can't get out of. If you allow an inmate to pull you out of your prescribed role, you are opening up a door for a host of problems. Inmate manipulation, the psychology behind inmate manipulation. Available now. Link in description. All right, and we're back. So you notice, and I'll start with Soto first. You notice I mentioned the superficial things. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some management positions that are going to guarantee you that 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. But most of the time, when you're that frontline supervisor, because that is the initial step, you're not going to have first shift Monday through Friday. You're going to have, you're going to have to work the weekend, probably on second or third shift, because you have to kind of have your time in to get that. So outside of the superficial, outside of, I'm going to lose my weekends or whatever it is, what are some of the things that you feel right now, Luis, that as you stepped up that you missed immediately, or maybe, even as you've been in the position for a while?
Well, I think what you're getting at is what everybody that moves up in rank initially loses. And that's, you can say however you want that your colleagues, your friends, your officers that are on the tier with you, the ones that you're working 8 hours in the trenches with, you're going to miss that because it's going to change. The relationship between you and them, whether they're your friends, true friends, or whether they're, they're co-workers that you got along with, that you have numbers of years with, it's going to change. Inherently, one, because of the title. It has nothing to do with you personally. It's just that feeling that, okay, you were my friend before, or you were my coworker before, my partner before, now you're my boss. So I have to act differently. And I know that people always say, no, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be the same way. But when you move into management, if you're going to be a good manager, whether you move up all the way up or just stay at the lower level ranks, in order to be a good supervisor, you're going to have to let go of some of those close-knit friendships. We are not going to be hanging out, drinking beer after work like we used to. We're not going to be, even in the mess hall while we're working. We used to sit together, have our lunch together. Can you do it as a supervisor? Yeah. Would it be the same? No, it's never going to be the same. And you're going to miss that. I'm telling you, because I miss it myself. Being invited to somebody's birthday party or somebody's, holiday party or anything like that. Before, you were being invited because you were one of the fellas, one of the guys, one of the comrades, one of the colleagues. Now they're thinking, should we invite the sarge? Should we invite the lieutenant? Maybe that's not such a good idea. We're going to do some things, that may carry into work. Is he going to report us to work? It's just an ethics thing. So you miss a lot of those little things. And on the other side or flip side, those that do invite you that you never hung out before, you start questioning. Are they inviting me because they like me, they want to be close to me, or are they inviting me because I'm their boss and they're trying to get an easier job? So things that you miss.
What's funny to me, you talk about parties as you cross into, like, let's say, at least from the administrative level, you go to a party and let's say something happens, people will be quick to note superintendent was at that party. It doesn't matter who else was there, but the paper's going to put down there was a superintendent at that party. Even though the superintendent was in, like, say, the backyard and the shit happened in the front yard, it doesn't matter. The superintendent was at that party. But you hit onto something that hit onto the dialogue that I was having today with my coworker, was the fact that I do miss the interaction, because I don't think the interaction will ever be where it was. It may be that way once I retire, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the people that respect you enough in that position don't put you in that position where they keep the interaction the same as what it was. Because we all know, as a front line, we have a closeness. We should have a bond, a closeness. And then when the supervisor comes in, there is a change of, character. It's like, okay, hey, Gangi's walking by. And I don't think it's because we don't trust Gangi. I think it's because we have respect for Gangi, and we want to make sure he doesn't walk into something that he shouldn't be aware of. But you do kind of miss that, because, again, the interaction, it's never going to be as genuine as it was when you were that front line. And I like what you said before. You get invited to a party from someone you don't know, what's the motivation? Where if I was a peer, I'll go. You know what I mean? I'll go. They probably think I'm cool. But when you're a supervisor, it's like, why are they inviting me? Oh, maybe because they want to work the tower every day. I don't know. But Connie, you see those same issues when you moved up?
Absolutely. So I was just writing it down. So one, I think I certainly missed the relationships. The relationships absolutely changed. I do believe it was out of respect. You know, there were certain things that just no longer was invited to, which I get it. You know, you don't necessarily want to be drinking at the tavern with your boss, right? So I get that part. But I think the other thing for me is just that carefree existence. I feel like, you know, when you're on the front line, when you're not in management, like you don't have to worry about all of that other stuff, right? It's like you have to, like every single thing you do, you have to remember that you're always on stage, right? Like people are always taking notes and taking, whether it's a mental note or an actual note, people are always kind of checking on what you're doing. And so you no longer make off the cuff comments, right? Every comment is like you do multiple filters in your head before you say something, because you don't want it to be misinterpreted. You don't want someone to take it and run with it. And then this is what this is what Connie said. The administrator told us this, right? So I think that was one of the things, because it's almost like you have to stop being yourself. You're still yourself, but there's a piece of you that you can't just openly be, because you just are always on your P's and Q's, so you don't get jammed up. And I think the other thing for me from a clinical side, I think because when I started out, I was having like engagements, like conversations with the inmates. And I know we don't want to talk about that, but you know, in a sense, when you can help dissect some of the clinical challenges that some of the population has been having, it's like a skill that you kind of push to the back because you don't really need it right now, but you kind of miss it. You miss that engagement where you can help someone move to the next level in their life, where you can help them navigate whatever this current issue is. You know, yes, you still as an administrator have some level of engagement in the therapeutic process, but it's not as much as if you were the case manager handling this case, seeing this person's transition from, you know, here to the community. It's a very different feeling. And so you kind of miss out. I don't know if it's necessarily the purpose, but like that feeling of what I'm doing is making a difference, and I'm making a difference in someone's life. You don't have that same feeling as you start to move up and you move further away from the actual hands-on work.
You know, you kind of hit up on a lot of important things. And I saw Soto nodding his head in agreement. I just want to mention something before I go to Soto. That was funny because you said how people can misinterpret what you're saying. So if you're at a bar hanging out with, you know, let's say the officers, you're the supervisor, and you go to someone and you say, hey, what are you drinking? Why do you want to know? Well, the drink looks good. Dude, the drink looks good. I just, you know, I'm not going to do anything about it. You know what I mean? But you're right, you know. But you also touched on something, and before I comment, I wanted Soto, because he picked up on it real quick. She mentioned carefree. Well, what does that mean to you, Soto? Because you went right and agreed with that immediately.
I agree totally. You know, before, when you have colleagues and you're on the tier, if you come up across a problem or concern that you can't deal with yourself, you always look back and, hey, Sarge, what you want me to do? Well, guess what? Now you're the Sarge. You can't go like, well, let's see what's going to happen. No, now you have to make those decisions. So it's like, man, you missed that because now you're responsible. You know what I mean? And not only responsible for you, but you're responsible for the actions of others. So when Connie said that, I was like, yeah, I missed that a lot, man, because a lot of weight came on your shoulders once you start moving up, you know. And it's just you also miss. She hit it right on the head. You know, you miss the job. You're good at your job. I'm good at running my tier, or I'm good at doing this, or I'm good at dealing with inmates, de-escalating things, and I'm not there all full time anymore. Now I'm there kind of like part time because I have more responsibility, more officers, more units to run. So you're not down there doing what you used to do day in, day out. You miss that too, you know? You may be good at that.
You know, I had a lot of people actually tell me that when they moved up, yeah, they, you know, obviously they had the added responsibility, but they really missed the one-on-one interaction, you know, and yes, it was with the population. You know, a lot of people that on the program side, definitely when they move up, I said, what's the one thing you miss? You know what, I miss having that one-on-one interaction, because again, that may be what motivated them to cross into the profession. But like Soto said, there are people that love working those housing units. There's an order to things. They like having that level of authority. They like having those interactions. And then when they move up, they lose that. And sometimes they have to do their best to try to not micromanage other people that are running those housing units. For me, it was funny because when I was having the dialogue, and it's great that you guys mentioned the one thing about the specific job function, because I wasn't thinking about that at all, but that is 100%. I believe there are certain job functions that, they become a part of you, even though you don't realize it until it's gone. And then you start to realize it when you're management, when you catch yourself almost doing something like, no, that's not for me now. That's for, whoever it is that's, on the front line. But, for me, it was something really like simple. Like, this may sound crazy, even though the inmates are not allowed to smoke anymore. I miss watching smoke breaks at night. I know it's superficial, but you know what? I worked at a facility. I'm not going to be too specific, but I'm not, sharing anything safety or security wise. But I worked at a facility that's like an open field. It was just beautiful out there. It was country. That was my opening position. I worked at a facility that was like more of like a college dorm. Which I know they say, the environment is not the environment of a prison, but there was something about that environment that was soothing, at least for staff. I thought so. And during the smoke breaks, it was like an open field. I don't know. I enjoyed it. There was just the night air, the smell, the air, the interaction with staff. And then, when I got moved up to this position, I didn't realize that would be a thing I would miss. Like, you're doing it every day, but I didn't think I would miss it. And I think part of the reason I know I miss it is because it's the final smoke break where I knew that at the end of that moment, I could leave work where it is. It's done. The day is over. I'm unwinding, and this is it. This is my last thing for the day. I'm going to be on my way to my car in about 15 minutes. When you move up to higher level management, the day never winds down. You're still getting phone calls at 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. So it's like you don't have that turnoff switch. And I know we've done a lot of videos where we talk about leave work at work and home at home. And I agree for the most part. Take advantage if your position allows you to do that. But there are some positions that will not allow to do that. And that's part of, I'm not complaining. That's part of the responsibility I knew that I would take on, But with that said, I missed that, knowing that that was the end of the day. It's over. And I could go home with no other added worries. And like you guys touched on, you're not going to get that anymore. But what's your thoughts on that, Soto? You ever miss that where you knew at the end of the day, it was the end of the day?
Yeah, and then, once you move up and you never get to stay usually the shift that you're on, so you start missing the people that you work with. You have to create new bonds, new relationships with new people on new shifts, But yeah, towards the end of the day, all your reliefs are done or everything's done. You're ready to come home to your family, your loved ones. So yeah, you miss all of that. But it's just a matter of making choices. You choose to move up in rank, and now you have a new challenge, and you have to find joy in these new, challenges that are coming up. And it's like, wow, man, I used to have sports events at my house where I used to invite, my colleagues, right? Now I'm their supervisor. How's that going to be looked at if I invite them over to my house, and something goes down or something happens or a fight breaks out? Am I going to be now responsible to report that to the job? Another thing that we used to do is we joke around as colleagues in lineup, when you're in lineup and you're making fun of people or, now you're the supervisor. I can't do that no more, I don't want to. But, it's just things that you can no longer take and do as freely as you used to. You know what I mean? Now you're being seen as the other side.
Well, I know exactly what you're saying because you have to be more careful. I was talking about that with Connie on the way home where, again, I won't go into details with this, but there used to be an officer that, we would kind of pick on each other. We go back and forth and just kind of slam each other. But as a supervisor, even though I know some people may think, oh, come on, Gangi, you're being too strict. But actually, technically, it only takes one person to hear it, and the supervisor's held to that higher standard. Most of the time, if the frontline person, if they get a slap on the wrist, the supervisor is going to get hit a lot harder than that because, again, they're in a position of control, and they wind up getting in trouble for maybe not doing anything about it. That's the other concern, too. Let's say you have two coworkers that just don't get along. Maybe as a peer, you could, maybe you want to do the right thing, You know, maybe you want to try to motivate them to get along, but you don't really have to. You know what I mean? You know, you can kind of walk away. Supervisors may not be able to do that. You know, if they see issues between two coworkers, you know, supervisors may have to, you know, get right in the middle of that and either forward it to EED if it's personal, or make sure that these two start acting professional. I see you nodding your head. What's your thoughts on that, Connie? And I did say EED, mind you. I said, don't forget, some of that turns into an ED matter, but before it does become an EED matter, there could be some level of interaction where you remind those people that they have to be professional. But I know you're agreeing to something. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a time where you could turn the other cheek, right? Where you don't have to be engaged. And I feel like as you move up, you understand the impact of those relationships and poor communication or things that are going to break down because these employees are not getting along or because they're not communicating. And so you might have to step up and be a mediator at some point, or you do have to escalate that to a higher level where it will be addressed. But, you know, as a manager, you have to do your due diligence. And part of that is addressing that issue the best way you can. And if you don't see improvement, then you go to the next level. But for certain, I mean, one thing you touched on that really got to me was like your time is no longer your own. And that's the thing that I think I missed the most, is that I could leave work, but the fact that I had an agency issued cell phone meant that I was supposed to be available when someone called related to work. And it didn't matter what time that call came in. It didn't matter what I was in the middle of. It was really, my time really was no longer my own. And I think I missed that a lot. Especially if you're in the middle of church and you get a call, right? You need to go answer it. Or, you know, you see your warden's number pop up in your phone. That's not a call that you're sending to voicemail, no matter what's going on, right? It's like all these different things that, you know, you kind of just give up and you do miss it.
You know, I'm thinking about the last day of when I became a supervisor. So the last day before that. And I remember telling goodbye to everybody, you know, and going through the motions. I even did the last smoke break, which I talked about. And the last smoke break, again, there's another part of it all too. Even that the fact that the day just ended, there's also me time. Like, because the smoke break was really, the inmates were like on the other side and we watched them from a distance, but it was in another area of the yard. So the GAs, most of the GAs were focused on the dorm units. And then it'd be one GA that would focus on this one isolated unit, which was a maximum security unit where the inmates were allowed out, but wasn't as many. And that would just be the time where after this whole busy day, no matter what happened, you know, you had that like 15, 20-minute smoke break to go ahead and just kind of be in with your thoughts as you're watching the inmates. Don't get me wrong, you're not taking your eyes off them, but it's like me time. And it was funny because people used to think that back in the day, don't get me wrong, I'm okay with no smoking, obviously, but people used to think the smoke breaks were just for the inmates, and they really weren't. You know, the smoke break was a good way for the unit officer to get a break, you know, get the inmates out into the yard and just take a breather for a second. Or sometimes it was a way for us just to kind of break away and, you know, watch things from a distance. But as I said, like you mentioned, I'm going to compliment what you're saying, is that I don't have the me time so much anymore, you know, because there's such a higher level of responsibility and you can't escape from it, you know, because, and I'll give you an example. You go on vacation now and you know for a fact that if you don't check your emails during the vacation, the work's going to mount up, you know, so then you come back on Monday or whatever the vacation is, like let's say in 2 weeks, and your work is mounted up. That's another thing where maybe the front line, I don't know, maybe like if I don't work the housing unit this day or I'm on vacation, I don't have to worry about coming back a week later and, you know, I have double the work that should have been handled by the people that run the housing unit. But when you hire management positions and you handle the paperwork and stuff, there's a lot of things that will not get done when you're not there. And if you don't keep track of it, it piles up. I mean, would you agree with that, Soto?
Yeah, you know, unless you got good counterparts, you know, lieutenants, sergeants, or other guys that can, and girls that can handle your workload while you go away. You know, you're always going to have to come do some fixing once you get back from vacation and stuff like that. But another thing that I miss is, you know, going back to that carefree, you know, when you were down in the trenches, you didn't have to worry about evaluating your subordinates either, right? You didn't have to do, you know, hey, how well did you work throughout the year? Did you know promote our goals and you do this. You got to evaluate your staff. And I was like, man, I didn't have to do this when I was an officer. Now I got to do this, you know, and that's not the best of jobs. You always want to give people great ratings, but you know, sometimes you just can't. It's one of those things that you miss. So, you know, just thinking over here as to other things that I didn't have to do before that now I got to do. I also miss, you know, believe it or not, the continuity. You know, when you're an officer, you come in, you're on a schedule, you kind of get used to, this is what happens throughout my day. The counts are a certain time, the smoke breaks are a certain time, people go out the unit at this time, that time, cleaning is at this time. So it's a routine. When you move up, you're just putting out fires, man. It's like there's never a routine. It's like, oh my God, what's coming next after I fix this? So that's something else that I miss.
Yeah, there's a fire in the foyer. Do we even have a foyer? You know, I mean, it's you know, you're right, you know, and that's true too. You know, that's why a lot of people actually, believe it or not, choose not to move up, you know, outside of maybe small incentives. Some of the thing is that the routine of, you know, I know my life is this way right now. I got the weekends off. I know when I come to work, it's rather predictable for me. I go to a housing unit 8 hours a day, whatever it is. So that routine really does hold people into those lower level positions, which makes sense to me, because if when you're putting out fires all the time, there's a lot of anxiety every time you come to work because you don't realize what's going to happen next. But at least in this case here, don't get me wrong. I mean, a housing unit could still be crazy, but for the most part, there is more level of control there. You do it every day. You know, you're familiar with the inmates, you're familiar with the population, and you're more familiar with the routine. But you hit on something so perfect. That's the reason why a lot of people don't move up, is because they're going to sacrifice something that they've been accustomed to. And again, the big thing we talked about superficially was for the weekend, but more so the routine of the job and the comfortability of that. Hey, Connie, anything you want to say in regards to routine? I think we can start wrapping it up. We're about 25 minutes in, but I'd like to, maybe you could discuss routine a little bit.
I would just say that, you know what, there is, you know, when you're in your comfort zone, you're in your zone when you have been on the line and you do have a routine. And if anything, I could say that I enjoy the unpredictability sometimes of having moved up, that sometimes just to break up the monotony and keep my skills fresh, like, you know, it helps you dig into your bag to figure out, oh, so how do I put out this fire? As opposed to kind of getting a little stale or stagnant in whatever role you're in. And some people want that and some people don't, you know, and I think that's the nature of the job, that you'll have some people who they are great worker bees and that's what they want to do. And then you have people who should be in leadership roles that are like, no, I'm all set. I don't want that. And then you have those people who are going to just dive into it because they have, you know, other ambitions or what have you. So, you know, in my mind, it's just, you know, you move up, there are certain things that you're going to have to give up. And that's just the reality of it.
And you know what's funny, just to reiterate, every position could have a level of unpredictability, but when you compound that with management who has a bigger area and a bigger span of control, it's like you don't know where it's coming from, you know, today. Like, I don't know that, you know, today it doesn't matter what area of the facility it's at, I'm still going to be responsible for it. You know, so that level of unpredictability can come from almost anywhere. And that's what kind of, yeah, it could be fun. Don't get me wrong. If you look at it as a chance to learn, it could be fun. You could, you know, you could do it with a smile on your face. But most of the time, if you're working at a facility that's already busy as it is, you're in survival mode the moment you enter. And then anytime something happens after that, you're trying to survive just to get past today. And that's where it can become a bit stressful. Hey, Soto, do you have anything you want to say in closing?
It was just a fun topic to dwell on today, and I enjoyed reminiscing about those yesteryears. So it was great talk.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was an interesting topic. We didn't really know where it was going to go, but I think we're going to hit home with some of the people that moved up, and hopefully the front line may see a bit of, you know, why we may see things differently after we explained it a little bit to them. And for those that want to decide to watch this, I mean, this may be not the most popular viewed episode, but it's still an interesting topic that we had fun with. Hey, Connie, what's your thoughts?
I just want to say thank you. I enjoyed also going through the reminiscing time of when I was, you know, on the front line. And I really do appreciate having that experience. I think it did prepare me well for what the next step was.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting dialogue. It's only because I had a dialogue today with a coworker, and it really made me reminisce. And I know I've discussed certain things in the past, but I think for me, there's a level of the job, but definitely the interaction with people that may have changed a bit because of that position. And again, in no way or form are we, separated from ourselves to the point where we don't appreciate the front line. I think having that frontline experience, when people say you have to remember where you're from, it's understanding their perspective. But there is still a line sometimes that has to be drawn where, I do have a higher level of responsibility. And unfortunately, that does change the dynamic of our relationship. And I think Soto broke that down very well at the beginning of the episode. But the key here is at the end of the day, there are certain things we miss. They're not like things that you think about until you're in the position long enough, and then you wind up going for those the stressful moment of the job, and all of a sudden you wind up catching yourself saying, "Man, I wish I could just do another smoke break." It's like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? You know what I mean? But it's true. It's the anxiety and stress of the job that makes you go back to what you feel may have been an easier time. And again, we're not saying frontline has an easier job, but with that said, there are some demands that management have to face that may not just end when the workday ends. So that level of escape just may not be there, especially if you're good management and good leadership. When you take on that responsibility really doesn't have a time limit to it. That responsibility comes across when you're at church, comes across when you're at the Giants game, if you're a fan of the Giants, but the responsibility doesn't stop, and you have to pick up that phone, and your family has to understand that level of responsibility. So yeah, I thought it was a very interesting dialogue, and gives us better understanding of why management may not be so willing to go to parties. I guess that's the end result. All right, guys, as always, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.